So today we're going to talk about adult learning, and particularly about adult learning as a piece of professional development in the school, because we really want our schools to be learning places for everybody. So we already know a whole bunch about how folks learn and how assessment works with that. We already know about summative and formative assessment, right? Where if we think of our learners as plants, then summative assessment of those plants is really just measuring them. It might be interesting to compare and analyze how big they are, how colorful they are, but by itself, that doesn't really affect the growth of the plants. On the other hand, with formative assessment, that's the same thing as feeding and watering the plants appropriate to what they need, and that really will directly affect their growth. Okay, we already know that about teaching in our classrooms. So today we'll talk about how that would work when we're talking about adults, right? Now, we also know that a lot of summative assessments are really hiding as formative ones, okay? And you remember we talked about earlier the fact that you don't fatten a calf by weighing it. Well, that's true for adults as well as for kids. We have the assessments at the end of the year, the final conferences that principals have with teachers. And we know that those are generally summative assessments, but how would we do formative assessment differently if we wanted to with adults? And how would we use that as a piece of growing? So we know that there are five really important elements to adult learning. The first thing is that it's self-directed. Okay, so this is really the essence of the goal-setting conferences that principals and teachers have together, right? Um, Teachers will sit down and figure out what goals are important for them for the coming year. And thereafter, teachers are largely independent, working on that, perhaps with some coaching, if there's an instructional coach in the school or in the district, or if we're lucky and we have coaching that can be done by the principal, it gets done that way too. Second thing is that adult learning is transformative and looking for those moments that will spark enough dissonance in the teacher's mind and the adult learner's mind that it opens them for reframing or for new knowledge, right? Challenging what was taken for granted. So I'll tell you a story, right? When I was a third grade teacher, my principal was ruthless about three questions. He would say, what do the kids know? How do you know they know it? And what are you going to do next? And one time we were going over a math lesson that I had just taught. And he asked me, so, okay, what do your kids know? And I was telling him, well, we were trying to work on reducing fractions. And the kids were having some trouble because they, they don't know all their multiplication facts so well. And therefore, they were having a hard time with greatest common factors and least common multiples and so forth and reducing fractions. And he stopped me cold. He said, that is not what I asked you. He said, there are a world of things they don't know. What I asked you was, what do they know? What strategies were they using? How do you know they know that? And what are you going to do next? So that was really a transformative moment for me. That got me permanently shifting my understanding from a deficit model of what kids don't know into an asset-based model of let me focus on what they do know and how they're applying what they know and how they're making what they know work for them in tough situations. So we want to seek those moments in adult learners. Um, Third thing is that adult learning is developmental. Just like kids who crawl, walk, and run, they all do that. There's a predictable path to that, but everyone has their own way of doing that. So that's also true with adult learning. And that's really the fundamental assumption of our teaching rubrics, going from ineffective to developing to effective to highly effective. This is a developmental path that all teachers will be on. It's just that we'll each go along that path in our own way. Fourth, adult learning is situated and it's collaborative. Okay, so it's got to be relevant to teachers' lives and to adults' lives, and it works best when it's done in relationships with other learners and with other adults at the same time. And finally, fifth, adult learning is holistic. It's not strictly technical knowledge. There are also hugely important dimensions of history, right? A person's history, or their group's history with the situation. Um, it's race figures in, gender figures in, and individual histories play a huge part. And when we consider all five of those things together, we really have adult learning that can be focused on growth.